It's The World This Week, 7 days, 4 Paris-based correspondents, 1 hour The World This Week in partnership with the Daily Beast. Paris traffic has kept correspondent Erin Zaleski at bay for now, but she will be joining us. Already here, of course, Anne Bagamary of the International New York Times.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Welcome back as well to Vivian Walt of Time Magazine.
Good evening.
And Guillaume Debray, senior correspondent for French television station TF1 and author of Washington, How Money Ruined American Democracy.
Good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. The World This Week, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter. Hashtag World This Week. For the first time in 70 years, Thailand woke up this Friday without a king. With Bangkok clad in black, thousands lined the procession route for King Bhumibol, who passed away Thursday at the age of 88. A one-year mourning period has been decreed with 1 month without ostentatious celebrations and concerts. The world's longest-serving monarch came to power just as Thailand was doing away with absolute monarchy, a guarantor of stability through the nation's many coups and constitutional shakeups. His life story, a heavy feature in the pool images of special programming shown on all stations in Thailand since his death was announced. The King of Thailand, again, this sort of ceremonial figure, but who matters a lot, both spiritually and politically. Anne Bagamary, of course, here in Europe, we think of Queen Elizabeth, who now becomes the longest reigning monarch. We see how much it brings back the question of how one person can matter so much, and he really was someone beloved.
Well, this discussion goes on in our newsroom, and has for decades. Every time a hereditary monarch approaches the age where one might reasonably be expected to dust off his or her obituary. What is the role of the monarchy in this day and age? Obviously, in Thailand, what you saw, a monarch who came to power at a time when he thought he would have a reign. He thought he would be able to make a difference in his country, but he came, and very shortly after, there was a military coup. This was 70 years ago. He was recalled from school in Switzerland in order to take over the throne, and he found himself facing a military junta. Now, with his passing, the country goes again in a military direction, one that he endorsed. He was never big on the democracy. The king wasn't. But now the big question for Thailand is, without a monarch with the level of reverence that he is accorded, there will be a successor, but he won't take the throne for about a year. Where does the country turn at this time of declining economy, increasing military control, and losing its father figure?
Yeah, there was a bit of a surprise when Parliament convened Thursday and failed to automatically anoint the Crown Prince as king. The junta leader and prime minister says it's at the request of Prince Maha Vajiralongkorn.
The Crown Prince confirmed that he will continue to perform his duty as the heir to the throne. And after the mourning of the loss of King Bhumibol has passed, and when the right time comes, he will assume his role.
Vivian Walt and Bagamary saying the big question is, can the Crown Prince fill the king's shoes?
Well, he's clearly a very different personality to his father and comes from such a different time of history. He's a guy who's been married a few times, has a reputation as a playboy, is not particularly beloved. And in fact, there would be perhaps a more suitable successor, which is his sister. But it's a patriarchal line, and it is his throne to assume. So one has to assume that this year-long period is a little bit of a kind of apprenticeship, or a time for him to kind of ease into the role, I guess.
A year which also gives the junta time to take it easy. I mean, not take it easy, but to hang on to power legitimately.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's every sign that Thailand is going that way. And I think the sad thing for this moment is the king that just died was the one sort of unifying figure in this very fractious country. We think of Thailand now as being skyscrapers and beaches and a tourist resort and so on. But, you know, it's a place where there's been tremendous violent conflict and where there's just incredible sort of, divisions and every potential to blow up. So it'll be very interesting to see how he manages it.
And this moment makes a very strong case, even though nobody is making it, for a strong institution. Because the reason there's a crisis is the sheer personality of the heir to the throne. If it had been a beloved, respected son of kings, and if he had done his duties correctly, it would not even be a question in this country. So the fact that, you know, there's a constitutional crisis here, it's because the institutions are not strongly established that the transition could go smoothly.
Yeah, that's the fascinating thing, because on the one hand, when you look at Bhumibol's reign, you see he manages to avoid all the conflict in neighboring countries that we saw in Southeast Asia ever since the 1950s. And then on the other hand, countless numbers of coups, attempted coups, and constitutional changes.
Well, the other question is, the personality is eccentric of the heir, but it's also said to be ruthless, to be unstable, to be dangerous at times, having ordered the killing of people, you know, who were surrounding him or enemies to him. So I think that the crisis could lead to a strong change in the way the stability of the country.
All right, we'll see how those institutions go. We welcome now Erin Zaleski.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here in the World This Week. You're just in time for our next segment.
Excellent.
Next segment being Time magazine back in August ran a front page cover with the headline Meltdown. There you saw that there was a picture of what appears to be Donald Trump. Polls would then narrow, but then came the first debate with Hillary Clinton, and now a steady stream of sexual harassment claims that followed last week's airing of a 2005 tape where Trump brags about getting his way with women, grabbing them by the privates, all because he's famous. So make way for this week's cover of Time. This time, and there you see it to your right, the caption reads, "Total Meltdown." Vivian Walt, Time magazine is calling the election?
I guess so. I mean, at this point, it's hard to see a path to victory for Trump, especially after the last 2 weeks. I think a few weeks ago, right here, we were talking about it being very close and neck. That seems to be widening considerably since the videotape came out. And so, yeah, it's, of course, they're putting their neck out, so to speak, given this illustration. But in a way, yes, Time is calling the election.
Erin Zaleski, the feeling is that, yes, the polls say there's a huge lead, but it seems as though they're not on the same planet, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. One's running a political campaign, the other a political movement, it seems.
Well, if I've learned anything so far from this election is to expect the unexpected. I mean, initially, everyone was saying he wouldn't be the candidate to begin with. And the fact that it's come this far is a bit surprising. That said, in my professional opinion, I don't think he is going to win the election. But on the other hand, I feel like the Republican Party has been irrevocably changed. And I feel like it's fractured the party. And it will be interesting to see what happens when the election's over.
The party's been irrevocably changed, or is this just a blip on the radar screen?
No, I think it's been badly injured by this. I think that it may even split as a result of this election.
Well, they're very lucky, the Republican Party, because come November 9th, they'll have a great unifier. It's Hillary Clinton. The minute she's elected, the party will come back together and fight for, against her. Mm-hmm. And I think the Republican establishments fear much more a Trump presidency than a Hillary presidency, because that would change dramatically the Republican Party. I think, I'm not sure we're back to business on November 9th, but it's politics as usual once she comes to the White House, and depending on what comes out in Congress, the Republican will be fighting the Democrats.
That is a great big question mark. What happens in Congress if Hillary Clinton is elected president and the House and the Senate and the state houses around the country remain in the same hands they are now, which is to say largely Republican hands, yes, I think we're looking at 4 years of gridlock and anger and denial and stasis, the way we have with Barack Obama, but on steroids, because of the tenor of this campaign, the nastiness that will come to a Hillary Clinton presidency. If, on the other hand, the result of this Trump campaign and the I would say it's a meltdown of the Republican Party too, not so much of Donald Trump. But if the result of this is that the Democrats take back the Senate, take back the House, and take state houses in key states, then I think you're going to see some serious, serious change on the political scene.
Serious change, because here's the question, all right? Donald Trump reversing what had been the trend for decades and decades, which is a Republican Party that goes more and more towards this libertarian streak. He's more raging against globalization rather than embracing it. Where's the Republican Party going to be after that?
I mean, I think, François, you said it perfectly. He's not running a political campaign. He's running a political movement. And I think what's so scary is what happens to this political movement after defeat. You have millions of people who are going to be angry, who are wearing buttons saying, Hillary in prison, or, lock her up, and who talk about unshackled, truly unshackled after November 9th.
All right, let's listen to Donald Trump, because he started his day on Thursday with a tweet dismissing all those claims of sexual harassment as total fabrication and staying on message on the campaign trail.
The claims are preposterous, ludicrous, and defy truth, common sense, and logic. We already have substantial evidence to dispute these lies, and it will be made public in an appropriate way and at an appropriate time very soon. The Clintons are criminals. Remember that. They're criminals.
Aaron Zaleski, people here have been wondering, looking open-mouthed, the spectacle that's become this presidential election campaign.
I think spectacle is the appropriate term here. It has become a spectacle, pretty much from the beginning. And anytime I think it can't get more circus-like, I'm proven wrong again. The latest, the sexual harassment claims, or it wasn't even harassment, I'd say, would kind of crossed over into sexual assault, given what he was saying on those tapes. And then the second debate, it just keeps getting more and more circus-like.
But the fact that he has works, doesn't mean that, tells something about the state of politics in America rather than Donald Trump. The fact that that he was able to get the nomination of the Republican Party, the first time since 1954, I think, that someone who had not been elected previously got the nomination, tells you about the fact that I think a lot of Republican voters don't take their establishment seriously, that there's a split. And one also of the reason why Trump, I think, was so successful tells you about the Democratic Party, which turned its back on blue-collar voters by, supporting free trade agreements, by going with this. So there's something about American politics that is changing, that Donald Trump expressing, but it's not just stupidity or buffoonery or a spectacle. There's something, I think, quite profound happening, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think he's tapping into, there's a lot of populist anger in the country, and there's even a theory that after the election, the party might split into two different parties. There might be the more central right, a more classic Republican Party, and then this alternative right, more populist party. We'll see if that happens, but that's what he's tapped into. There's a lot of angry people in the country who feel disenfranchised, and he's really riled them up. They've gotten behind him.
But what's strange this week, and I'll put it to you, Vivian Walt, is how it's turned into almost a war of the sexes.
Yes. And if you looked at, I believe it was the website 538 this week, posted two graphs of what the election would be if only men voted and what the election would be if only women voted. And it's like, women are from, men are from Mars and
women are
women.
from Venus,
men
men
are
are
from
from
God
Mars.
knows where. But, you have men voting 80% for Trump and women voting 80% for Clinton. It is such an incredible gender schism, really. You can't even call it a divide. It's just a kind of cleavage. And it's very interesting because increasingly American universities are dominated by women. Professions are becoming a little bit more female. I mean, this really, I think, seems to be the logical outcome of a kind of rise of women in positions of power, and now a woman president, likely.
We all assumed after the women's liberation movement of the 60s and 70s that this sort of war of the sexes over time would lessen. But this election shows the opposite, it seems.
Well, I think there was also a feeling that when America elected its first black president, that this would show progression on race issues, and we've seen the exact opposite play out again and again and again. No, I think that this is the great, and it's not because we haven't been trying to cover all the issues around this, but this October surprise with the tape and then the women who stood up to say, yes, he groped me too. That has been the big revelation, I think, of the issue that has not gone away, is not in any danger of going away anytime soon. And we don't have to look at the American election to see this. This is a problem in other developed countries. Look at France. Who was here I think I was probably opposite you, Viv, 5 years ago. We were talking about Dominique Strauss-Kahn.
Oh, yeah.
And his problems in America. And it was supposed to usher in a great period of self-searching and reflection and better behavior in French politics, French business, French society. It never happened. A year ago, women were protesting that in regional governments, they were constantly being sexually harassed and even sexually assaulted. It's not going away. It's an issue that doesn't get talked about in the same way between men and women. And I'll give you one more example of that. The maps on 538 showed a stark difference between the men and women vote. Men and women reacted very differently to the Trump video. The men assumed everyone would be, the ones who were outraged, were outraged by his use of certain words. Okay? Women didn't think those words were so terrible. The terrible word in that video for many women was grab. And the other terrible, I'm going to go grab her, whatever. That implies I will take what I want when I want it. I'm entitled to it. And the other word that was most offensive to women was it. When either the TV host or Donald Trump referred to the soap opera actress who was coming to greet them as it. That was it in a nutshell. Men, they were offended, but not because of that. Women were offended by the objectification and the assumption that they were there for the taking.
And what did you make on the Ellen DeGeneres show this Friday? Hillary Clinton saying she felt stalked during last Sunday's debate by Trump walking around with their microphones during that town hall style debate.
Very, very astute choice of words on her part. She's playing into the zeitgeist. I don't know if, honestly, she felt stalked. But the fact is, those images were creepy. In light of that video, those images were creepy.
When we come back, we're going to talk about debates on the other side of the Atlantic. Stay with us. You're watching The World This Week.